Luther Burden and Jack Bech are two of the biggest losers coming out of week one of the preseason. We'll tell you why next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Michael Fabiano. You can follow him on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. You can also check out all of his great work over on SI. And on today's show, we're talking about the biggest losers coming out of week one of the NFL preseason. Fabs, you and I were texting back and forth trying to come up with some names. And one of the names that you mentioned was Luther Burden, one of my favorite players in all of Dynasty. So I don't necessarily agree on this one. I want your take on why you think he's a loser coming out of the preseason.
I think it's just usage in preseason game one. And remember, he's kind of been behind the 8 ball because he's missed time. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they were bringing him along a little bit slowly. And is there a world where Olamide Zaccheaus is the Bears slot receiver in week one? I think that's possible. Now, that's not going to be the long-term situation, of course. Burden's going to end up being their main slot player. But look at his usage in that first preseason game. He played the entire first half. None of the other wide receivers played very much, if at all. You're talking about like the DJ Moores and the Rhamondre, and Burden started with the backups. I mean, Tyler Scott and Devin Duvernay. And in the first offensive plays, the 14 offensive plays there, he played only in 3 receiver sets. So that was, again, it's the first game of the preseason, but I don't think it was a sparkling debut for Luther Burden in that he played as if he was maybe more of a backup on the depth chart right now. And if you do look at that Bears depth chart, I mean, he may be 4th or 5th. Now he should move up. I'd be shocked if he didn't. And ultimately he'll be 3 behind Moore and Odunze. But it may take a little time before Burden actually gets up to speed and ends up making any kind of impact in fantasy. And also keep this in mind, Marcus, you know this. Right now, I mean, at best, he's the 3rd or 4th option in the passing game, at best.
I don't care. I like him a lot still. he played in the slot. He played in the slot exclusively, which I like, right? Like that's what you want to see. The other part of it that he was getting open. Now, the quarterback play was not great. Caleb Williams did not play in this game, but he was getting open. We also had all right. After the game, Ben Johnson was talking about Luther Burden, and he said, he's really admired how hard he's worked and all the extra things that he's doing to get ready. He did have a quote where he said, it's not where it needs to be yet. And frankly, it isn't, but he's working on it, right? He talked about kind of getting his route running up to par. But he's playing in the slot in an offense under Ben Johnson where the slot receiver is the focal point of the offense. I do think Ben Johnson is going to do a good job of trying to spread the ball around a little bit and utilizing Rhamondre. But if Luther Burden is the starting slot receiver for the Chicago Bears, that's all I really care about.
Yeah, and obviously from a dynasty perspective, long-term, he will be. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So I'm just suggesting that coming out, being a player that a lot of folks in the fantasy world loved a year ago, and then again last season in Missouri was maybe not as good as we kind of had hoped. There are high hopes for him, and I just think, as I mentioned, that this is potentially just going to be a little bit of a slow burn, where maybe he's not the starting slot receiver in week one, but ultimately earns that role moving forward. But I also feel like the ceiling is something you have to talk about because he's not going to be the first option. He's not going to be the second option. There's a chance if Colton Loveland develops, he won't be the third option in that passing game on a regular basis. Let's just see if the talent plays out.
I like him a lot. I like the way that he was moving. I don't care. But honestly, this is my kind of general thing to the preseason. if you just didn't watch a single thing that happened in the preseason, you didn't read a single nugget that happened, more often than not, you're going to be more accurate than the guys who are consuming every little thing that they have, because we all overreact to every single newsworthy item, and sometimes it's not even newsworthy, right? I just like Luther Burden's talent. I like the situation. I like that he's playing in the slot. Maybe it doesn't work the first month of the season, but when I'm drafting Luther Burden in my dynasty rookie drafts, I don't necessarily care about the first month of the year. I care what he's going to do over the next 3.5 years. I'm still buying.
I'm not saying I'm not buying. I'm just saying that the first game of the preseason was maybe not as great as we would have hoped, but no one's overreacting.
All right, let's talk about the Raiders for a second, because
Raiders.
They did play their starters for one drive. Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker were two of the starting receivers. You also had Dante Thornton Jr., who I've been a big fan of, a 4th-round pick from Tennessee, starting as the X receiver. And then we saw Jack Bech, the Raiders' 2nd-round pick, rotating in, and he was playing with guys like DJ Turner and Terrace Marshall and Tommy Millott. It doesn't seem like Jack Bech is going to be a week 1 starter for Las Vegas, which, again, is not the biggest deal, but it seems like there's quite a few names currently ahead of him on the depth chart.
He's 4th right now.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's at best, right? You had mentioned Thornton was the starter. Jacoby Myers started in the slot. Trey Tucker was the Z receiver. And maybe like Burden, this is going to be a bit of a slow burn. And another thing too is that Bech played the entire first half. And typically in the first week of the preseason, players in the coach's minds who are going to be starters don't do that. So he's got a little work to do, clearly. If you are in a dynasty startup right now, or if you are in a rookie only draft, Marcus Mosher, is Thornton going ahead of Bech for you?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. I wasn't the biggest Jack Bech fan coming out of TCU. I think just a little stiff in his route running, but I think the biggest problem here is that he is primarily, or at least I think his best role is in the slot, and he's in an offense that has Brock Bowers, who is basically a slot receiver, right? We should also mention the Raiders have been pretty consistent in that Michael Mayer has been one of their best players throughout training camp, and Chip Kelly is like dead set on getting him on the field a majority of the snaps. So if Jack Bech is going to be the 4th receiver in this offense, sure, he'll probably rotate in, but it's not going to be consistent at all. And the pathway to snaps is going to be pretty hard for Jack Bech.
And we're talking about 4th receiver, wide receiver. Let's talk about Brock Bowers, who's going to lead the team in targets again.
Yes.
Are we going down the path of yet another TCU wide receiver tanking in the NFL? Well, I don't know.
I don't think
Johnston, Josh Dodson. I mean, you're
Jalen Reagor, but I don't think it's
Jalen Reagor. Like, they all suck in the NFL. So I mean, I don't listen.
I don't necessarily think it's a skill issue. I just think the Raiders want to be a run-heavy offense that uses two tight ends, and the X receiver in their offense is going to be a field stretcher, right? That's going to be the guy that's making plays down the field. That's Thornton. Thornton's 6'4", can run in the 4.3s, like legitimately 4.30 at the NFL Combine. That's not Bech's role. So he's fighting with like Jacoby Myers, who's incredibly established, and Trey Tucker, and some of these other guys in the roster. It's just the upside feels so limited here.
Yep. Yeah. In year 1 for sure. And listen, if Thornton ends up being that hidden gem that the Raiders found, even though they drafted Bech ahead of him, then so be it. Right now, obviously, in the words of Marcus Mosher, Thornton's the guy you want, and yes, Bech may be better left to somebody else's dynasty squad.
And this isn't just a one game of the preseason thing. Like, this has been consistent throughout training camp. Thornton has
all the talk has been about Thornton. That's right.
Yes. And he's the guy running with the first team, and he's the guy they're comparing to DK Metcalf. So I feel bad for Bech because I do like him, but this is a tough situation.
And here's again, this is a redraft, but in the Kings Classic, which is super wide receiver heavy. I mean, super wide receiver heavy. Thornton went way ahead of Bech. In fact, I got Bech, I think, in one of the last 2 or 3 rounds. Yeah. And I mean, these drafts are long. So that just tells you that the industry is not real high on him right now.
All right, let's talk about a couple of running backs that we are concerned about coming out of the preseason. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. And for just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on the MVP race. I kind of like Patrick Mahomes. I think they finally have enough weapons to put up some points, or crown your champion in August, whether you think it's going to be the Eagles repeating, maybe the Chiefs make it back, or maybe it's a new team like the Buffalo Bills, who I'm kind of rooting for this year. Or you can parlay your division winner, dark horses. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures right now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Fabs, let's talk about some veteran running backs that we are a little bit concerned about coming out of the preseason. We've got to start with Breece Hall.
Yeah. And again, like I keep hitting this. It's like it's the first game of the preseason, so let's not get crazy. Hall started for the Jets, but he only played 50% of the team's snaps with the first team offense. That worries me a little bit. Okay. And remember, you still have Braylon Allen. You still have Isaiah Davis. You have a Lions coaching staff that's coming in that utilized a 2-back system. Now, both of those backs are very good. And so I'm not saying that this is a death blow for Breece Hall. But when you look at the rotation, where he played the first 2 snaps and Davis came in on 3rd down, then Hall came back in, then he was replaced by Braylon Allen for 2 plays, then Davis played the next snap, and then Hall came back in. I don't want this. That's not good for Breece Hall. We don't dig this. And let's not get nuts. Like, Jahmyr Gibbs is elite. And David Montgomery, to me, is one of the most underrated running backs in the National Football League. He is a spectacular back. Mm-hmm. He's not elite, but he's damn good. In fact, I would compare Breece Hall more to a David Montgomery in terms of value. And because Jahmyr Gibbs is head and shoulders ahead of him. And we've heard Aaron Glenn come out and say this earlier in the offseason, like, I'm going to use all 3 of these guys. And, sometimes it's coach speak and you're like, oh, yeah, sure, Aaron, you're going to use all 3. That's a bunch of hogwash. He might use all 3. And if that happens, we are going to be hurting for certain when it comes to Breece Hall. That's why I am trying to get Braylon Allen in all of my dynasty drafts, all of them. Because I feel like he could be the future of the Jets backfield. Maybe not this year, but the future. Do the Jets want to spend a lot of money on Breece Hall? They're going to have to if they want to keep him. Braylon Allen is going to be cheaper. Isaiah Davis is going to be significantly cheaper. So they go with that sort of scenario moving forward. And also, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Breece Hall's breakout year in 23 finished with a 3-game stretch where he averaged 33 points per game. That's crazy town and unsustainable. And before that, he was averaging like 13 points per game. Yeah. And maybe that's what Breece Hall is. And that's okay. Maybe he's a 13 or 14 point per game running back, which puts him, in the borderline RB1, RB2 conversation. But it certainly doesn't put him in the top 8. I mean, right now, when you're talking about dynasty, he's in the top 8. And I don't know if he belongs there. And if we see this again in preseason week 2, it's going to start to get scary if you have Breece Hall. I have told people out there, if you have him, I would try to move him. And if you're in a draft, I would certainly not overdraft him. Again, I'm not getting nuts. I'm not getting crazy. It's the first game of the preseason. But if this is a mirror of what we're going to see in the regular season, where it's a 3-back situation, even if Hall is leading that 3-back situation, it still hurts his ceiling.
Aaron Glenn doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that's going to engage in like hyperbole, right? Like it feels like he's very much a straight shooter. And he said in the offseason, like, hey, yeah, we're going to use a lot of different running backs. And that's exactly what played out in week 1 of the preseason. Now, I still think Breece Hall is going to be the most valuable of the running backs. Like,
yes.
Let's just get that out there, right?
Yes.
I think he's going to be the starter. He's going to see the most touches. He's going to see the most snaps. but Braylon Allen played in this game and looked good. And when I envision what this Jets offense could look like, it's a lot of read option with Justin Fields, and it's a lot of screens to Breece Hall, and it's Braylon Allen running downhill. And that just doesn't seem like a guy that should be valued as a top 10 dynasty running back. If you're going to be in a running back by committee on an offense that's not Detroit, like it works for Jahmyr Gibbs because he's in one of the highest scoring offenses in the league. I don't know if it's going to work for the Jets, who I think could be better on offense this year, but I don't think anybody expects this to be like an offense that's going to score 26, 27 points a game. Like that's just not who they are. The other part of it is he just doesn't look like the same guy physically to me, like that we saw back in 2022 before the ACL. And I do think he looked a little bit better than he did last year, but he's just not the same athlete anymore. And it always concerns me when you're drafting these guys who just don't look like superior athletes anymore.
I get it. I have my concerns about Breece Hall. I will say this. Did you see Justin Fields rush for that touchdown? Oh, man. That gave me all the tingles, man, because I love Justin Fields. But,
one more thing real quick.
Yeah.
I don't take beat reporters do a really good job at getting us information, but they're not necessarily the best at analyzing the information. However, there was one beat reporter over the weekend who said Justin Fields is going to lead the team in rushing touchdowns, and Braylon Allen is going to lead the team in rushing yards, and Breece Hall is going to lead the team in yards from scrimmage. And I thought about that. And it's like, okay, I could see that happening, right? Like maybe Breece Hall is getting 1,300 yards, 1,400 yards total, and it's like 700 and 700, right? And it's Braylon Allen that gets 800 rushing yards. But if that's the case, and it really is that kind of split in the backfield, I want no part of Breece Hall now or in the future.
That seems a little clickbaity to me.
A little bit, but it's also if they're seeing this in camp, like, hey, this is a real committee and we're giving Braylon Allen all these touches, I think that's the bigger takeaway, is that this is going to be a full-on committee.
Yeah, I can see week one and the Jets are out there, and all of a sudden Braylon Allen rushes for 45 yards and a touchdown, and Breece Hall's numbers aren't great, and everyone's freaking out. And that's what you might encounter this year with the Jets backfield.
Yeah. Let's talk about some other veteran running backs that we are a little spooked by coming out of week one of the preseason. Rhamondre Stevenson, just because, as we talked about on yesterday's show, TreVeyon Henderson looks really good. And I've got to assume the further that we get along in the season, the bigger that role is going to get for Henderson.
I love the talent, and I think long-term, yes, I'm in. But again, like I've said it before, like Rhamondre Stevenson is not a crappy running back.
No, he's not. He's
not. Now Henderson's ahead of Antonio Gibson, like by a mile. So like Antonio Gibson's not even in our conversation anymore. It's going to be Stevenson and Henderson, but Stevenson's going to be the starter. And I found an interesting stat over at PFF. And if you look at Josh McDaniels' 18 seasons as either an offensive coordinator or a head coach, the running back who's had his team in third down snaps has been different from the running back who actually leads the team in carries in 17 of those 18 seasons. So Rhamondre Stevenson, if that trend continues, will likely lead the Patriots in carries this season, unless he gets hurt, obviously. Henderson may be better suited as a PPR flex, and he could very well have standalone value in year one as a flex starter in PPR leagues. And obviously he's being used on special teams too. And if you're in a league that's smart and you're giving points to players for return yards and touchdowns, that makes him even more valuable. There's no doubt about that. But just don't expect that TreVeyon Henderson is going to come in and make a massive impact in year one. It might not be until year two. It might not be until year three. Rhamondre Stevenson is still under contract. I love him long term, but I feel like the hype is getting a little wild, Marcus, on Henderson. It's getting a little wild.
I don't disagree.
Start to get picked in the third round of redrafts, it's getting a little wild.
I don't disagree. I just wonder if Henderson's going to play a big enough role to just kind of nuke all of the value of Rhamondre Stevenson. Because
I'm not saying I love Stevenson, brother.
Right.
I'm worried about him too. I'm worried that, as you, I think, are alluding to, that they're going to end up kind of, chipping each other's value to the point where it's like flex starter at best.
Probably
for the first season.
And honestly, it's probably going to be Henderson as the guy that you want as a flex starter because he's going to get to work, in the passing game. But Rhamondre, one of the biggest things about him is he's just gotten so much volume over the last couple of years, and that's what's made him fantasy relevant. If he's not getting that volume, I do think he's going to get the goal line work. But again, this is an offense kind of like the Jets that we aren't predicting to be a top 15, top 16 offense in the league. And if I just don't really want a older, bigger running back who's not explosive on a less than stellar offense.
I think another part of projecting this backfield is, how do you feel about the Patriots as a team? Do you think the Patriots...
I think they're going to be in a bunch of low-scoring games where they try to lean on their defense.
So does that favor Rhamondre Stevenson? Maybe it does.
Maybe.
Do you feel like the Patriots
are just not going to be in the scoring?
Do you think they're going to be playing from behind more often than not? That benefits Henderson. So you have to also think about what kind of team the Patriots are going to be on both sides of the ball. Are they going to be in games? Are they going to be getting blown out? Are they going to be ahead? Like, those are also things that you got to think about.
All right, let's talk about a couple tight ends that might be falling down our dynasty rankings. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, Fabs and I are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. And to kick it off, they've just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's only one team left standing. And with the season right around the corner, now is the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. And if you're more into the classics, that's okay. You can still play head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. So stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Bets. Betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers have daily MLB locks and can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Fabs, let's talk about a couple tight ends that stood out to you in a bad way over the weekend. Who do you got?
Let's start off with Elijah Arroyo, whose value seemingly went up when the Seahawks decided that they were going to move on from Noah Fant.
Yep.
But in the first game of the preseason, we saw A.J. Barner not play, which would indicate that he's the starter. And we saw Eric Sauber play the role of the starter. And then we saw Arroyo mix in on passing downs. And I think you also have to keep in mind that Clint Kubiak coached Sauber in Denver in 2022. So is this going to be like a three-headed tight end monster in the great Northwest? And if it is, that stinks. We don't want that. Like Arroyo, I think, for all intents and purposes, is the most talented as a pass catcher and a playmaker out of that trio. But if Barner is going to be the starter and Sauerbert's got obviously some familiarity with Kubiak's offense, Arroyo may have a hard time being consistent and playing consistent snaps and running consistent routes in year one. Long term, is he the guy you want in Seattle? Absolutely at tight end. There's no question about that. But I'm starting to worry. And again, it's only the first game of the preseason. I'm going to bring that up a million times. I don't like that this is looking like a rotation where Arroyo maybe is not going to be consistent enough in terms of being on the field, in terms of consistent snaps and routes run, where I'm going to be able to use him on a regular basis in fantasy, at least out of the gate.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get much value out of him this year. But again, in dynasty leagues, you're hoping that he becomes a starter, which he eventually will. I don't think we have any doubts about that. But I think one of the things that's hard to it's hard to project Arroyo because he doesn't have a stable quarterback situation, right? It's Sam Darnold this year, and then the Seahawks can move on after a year. Like they can move on with very little dead money. Is it Jalen Milroe? Is it somebody else? Generally, when you're drafting these tight ends, in the tight end 20, tight end 18, 19 range, you want somebody that has a little bit more stable of a situation. He just doesn't have that. I really like Arroyo. I liked him coming out of Miami, but he's somebody that you're going to have to be really patient with. And the problem is we just don't know how long you're going to have to wait, because let's say he's a part-time player this year. He's a part-time player next year, or even, a starter. How excited are you going to be about a tight end that's playing with Sam Darnold in an offense that we project to be middle of the road? Probably not very. And that's where it's, are you better off stashing someone like Jake Ferguson, who I don't think is as talented as Arroyo, but he's in a much better offense with a much better or more stable quarterback situation. It's not sexy, but I think that's probably the better way to go.
You also got to keep in mind that Arroyo has had a long list of injuries in college. And so we're not super certain how durable he's going to be at the next level. So again, it's only one game, but I don't like what I saw.
All right. The other one that you mentioned was Dalton Kincaid, which again,
I am kind of cry. It makes me
I'm a kind of a Dalton Kincaid truther, so I
like him. Here. I always have. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Buffalo it looks like they're still going to use like a two-man rotation at tight end. Kincaid is the better pass catcher. Dawson Knox is a better blocker. We've seen Dawson Knox utilized in the red zone in the past. He's actually been, a fantasy starter earlier in his career because of, his touchdown potential. But like the rotation in the past has been like where Knox has kind of played more like early downs and Kincaid's playing, more in passing situations. And it looked like the same kind of thing in the first preseason game. In the first two drives, Knox played 5 snaps. Kincaid played 4. When the Bills are going to throw the football, yes, Kincaid's going to be on the field. When they run the football, probably Knox is going to be on the field, which gives defenses a bit of a hint in terms of what the Bills are going to be doing. But when Kincaid came out of college, I was thinking this guy's got a shot to be one of the best.
Yep.
Because he's a superior pass catcher. You hear he's a wide receiver in a tight end's body kind of thing. And the first couple of years, we haven't gotten it. And if things don't change, and there was no indication in the first game of the preseason that they will, then again, Dalton Kincaid's ceiling is capped, like big time. And, the Bills, they added Josh Palmer in the offseason. Keon Coleman is there. Khalil Shakir is dealing with a little bit of an injury right now, but obviously he'll be a big part of the offense coming into the season. So I'm just wondering, and it's like at a lesser degree, like a Kyle Pitts kind of thing, because we had like super high expectations of Kyle Pitts. And obviously after his rookie year, he's gone into the can. But is Kincaid going to be kind of the same thing? I'm a little worried about that because I like him. I'm worried. I'm worried that we, much like Kyle Pitts, we're expecting too much.
So the Bills threw the ball 38 times in week 1 of the preseason, which is a normal amount for the preseason. On the other side, the Giants threw the ball 51 times, but 38 attempts, 18 different players were targeted in this preseason game. And that's with Josh Palmer and Keon Coleman and Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid playing. Khalil Shakir didn't. It's not going to be like that in the regular season. Obviously, it's going to get condensed down. But this is just kind of what we've seen out of Buffalo. Like Joe Brady likes to play a lot of different receivers, a lot of different tight ends. He likes to get the ball to the running backs. Even someone like Ty Johnson gets targets in this backfield. And I think that honestly is my biggest concern with Dalton Kincaid. I think he can become a really good and consistent player, but the targets won't be consistent because Joe Brady just doesn't want to play that way. I don't think he wants to funnel all the targets through one player. I think he likes to be multiple. And again, that would just showed out again on Saturday afternoon. Like Buffalo is going to use 7, 8, 9 different, pass catchers every game.
Doesn't Joe Brady know we like the funnel in fantasy football?
I know.
Come on, man.
Come on, Joe. I mean,
help us out. Yeah, he doesn't give a rat's patootie about us in the world of fantasy football, and that's clearly hurting Dalton Kincaid's value and giving me a little bit of a headache because I've been high on him. And unfortunately, those of us who like him have not been right.
Yeah. Joe Brady, great offensive coordinator in real life, bad for
fantasy. With the program, man.
I know. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, it's a Wednesday show, so of course, Matt Williamson will be here to answer your mailbag questions. Make sure you guys tune in for that. Follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here on Wednesday.